Welcome to the Investor Coaching Show. Here's your host, Paul Winkler.
And welcome to the Investor Coaching Show. Paul Winkler. Mr. Chad Henson here, talking the world of money and investing. And talking about the news of the day, what's happening in the world of high finance. Chad, I know you've been keeping your finger on the pulse of things this week as I've been in different areas, just different areas of finance, but I know you've had a couple things that you...
Yeah. So
what's going on?
A couple of interesting things that I came across this week is the Great Unretirement is what they're calling it.
The Great Unretirement.
Yeah. So
we go through the two phases of life. Once where we work for money, and then when we try to do is move to the other one where money works for you and you're retiring. But there are people that are going back to work. I'm assuming that's what that means.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. And so what it is the age group, it's usually around 60 to 65. Mm-hmm. What happened was during COVID, a lot of people either retired and took an early retirement.
And they seem to like it is what the initial assessment was. They liked, hey, this is good. I can get used to doing nothing.
Right, exactly. And then, of course, some people, the reason a lot of those that, I like it, this is great and everything. And now, we've hit point of, high inflation and things, and maybe things aren't as rosy as we thought they were, type of thing. But the other segment of the population that took early retirement, a lot of them were forced to because of, business shutdowns, layoffs.
Oh, yeah. And I've talked to several companies where they actually had to cut back and because they weren't getting the orders coming in and they just slowed down simply, unexpectedly. So the recent figures show about 1.7 million people are going back into the workforce that were in the early retirement range. So just a lot of people going back in. Many reasons for it. Some like I said, with inflation and maybe money's tight. Others because they really didn't want to retire. They were forced to retire, and now there are job openings and positions for them to go to. I wonder how much of it is that people like being needed, and there's no question they are needed. Because they're seeing the help wanted signs everywhere. And I think there's got to be some aspect of that where you go, because I've even looked at this, man, if I were a retired person, and I've thought about that, I'd go to work at that company in a heartbeat just simply because it puts you back in contact with people again.
Right.
And there is such a need that you may feel in a level of an appreciation that you didn't while you were working.
True.
I could see where that would happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And people of that age group, with the vaccines and everything, they feel safer to be back out in public now. So.
Well, yeah. But I just
as
you were saying that, the social aspect's what's coming to me.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are in jobs, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that are probably nodding their head going, yep, that's me, where they just don't feel like anybody really cares about what they're doing. They're taken for granted. And now they're seeing all of this need, and somebody that's hiring would go, yes, please, come on. I would love to have you in here. And it's, wow, this is a big change compared to what I'm used to.
Right.
I can see where that would be the case. Sure.
Definitely. And so, one of the other things that and this is not a new trend since COVID. This has been going on for a while. And we've seen a lot of clients that have transitioned from, working to retirement by, I'm going to stop my career now, but I'm not going to quit working, and do something part-time, and then ease kind of into retirement. But the newest trend is that instead of just taking that big jump it's like a sliding scale, instead of, I've been working 40 hours a week. now I want to work 30 hours a week.
And I've seen
and then
that
I
too.
want to work 20 hours a week, and then 10 hours a week, and then I'm eventually retired.
I know one doctor, and we talked recently, and he works a few weeks. Now he'll work the full week, but he'll work, maybe 2-3 weeks, and he's done.
Yeah.
And he's making a salary doing that amazingly that, so a lot of people have to work, year round to get that. It's a very enviable position.
Right,
but
yeah. And I think a lot of it depends on what field you're in, whether you are able to do that or not. Certain jobs, naturally, you can't, just dictate that, okay, I'm not going to work 40 anymore, I'm going to work 30. But if you're in a position to do that, it kind of lessens the blow, in the sense of, because I think most people's biggest fear when they retire is going from, okay, I've had this, regiment that I've done for 40 years. I get up, I go to work, I work 5 days, and then I'm off on the weekend, and then I start all over and do it again. And it kind of eases into it because you don't go from, I have this structure in my life to I don't have any structure in my life.
Right. And I can see where people would gravitate towards seasonal occupations as well.
Sure.
Maybe only work in the fall and the winter, just before, right around Christmas time, or only work in the summer when you're doing outdoor, if you're an outdoor person doing landscaping, or, you're a tour guide or something. I don't know.
I think a lot of landscapers would argue with you that, summer was a great thing, but that's when they make their money. So,
well, no, I thought,
but
I was talking to one a couple of days ago, and I said, so what do you think of your work? I said, I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. Getting outdoors all day long, nothing better.
It's a job you have to love, though.
I
love being outdoors, but I don't think I want to be a landscaper.
He absolutely loves it. Loves the creativity of it. So
isn't
that funny about how people, just like going, man, I'm glad there are people that do what you do. People say that to us all the time. I'm glad there are people that do what you do, because we always assume somehow everybody likes doing what we like doing.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. But there's in this, with people going back to work that are in that age range, that maybe retired early, one thing you got to be cautious of is if you did, retire early and you turned on Social Security.
Yeah.
So, you've got
a penalty.
You've got to worry about the income limits. If you're not going back to work full time,
if you're under your full retirement age, which for people born after 1960 or after, it's age 67. So you got the $2 that you earn over the threshold, it's about $19,000. You get $1 of your Social Security taken away. But don't make that a reason not to earn more money, simply because what they do is they recalculate your age at your full retirement age.
Exactly. But, you need to be aware of that you're not going to, keep receiving your full benefit and your salary and everything like that.
And that's a really good point to be made. So, don't go and budget based on you're going to get your full Social Security. So, if you make... Let's just use 19,000 as a nice even number. It's not exactly that, but let's use that as unless you're making 29,000, you're making 10,000 over. They're going to take away $5,000 of your Social Security.
Right.
So let's say that happens to be, just for the fun of it, let's say that happens to be 3 months worth of benefits. And you do that for 4 years before you hit your full retirement age. You lose a full quarter's worth of benefits, let's say. Then what's going to happen is they take away a full quarter for 4 years. They will deem you to be 1 year older than you are when you hit your full retirement age, and they'll recalculate your Social Security as if you were 1 year older. So it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, you're not losing it forever. You're just temporarily, putting it off. But so you brought up an excellent point, in the fact that, don't let that discourage you from going back to work, because there's other long-term benefits that goes along with it. For instance, let's say your Social Security wasn't enough to cover, all of your expenses, which most people's case it's not.
Yeah.
So you're going to be, withdrawing from your portfolio. Well, by going back to work, while you can or you want to and everything like that, you put off having to draw on that portfolio, which increases the longevity and the likelihood of it lasting throughout your lifetime.
And that's the big issue with investment portfolios, is that sequence of return risk. If you have negative returns or bad returns early on, because markets are going to go down. I mean, let's just newsflash, it's going to happen. When you recognize that the market is down more, or the investments are down more than you like, and you're early on in retirement, that can actually have an effect on a negative effect. So the only times that you really look at, when you're doing probability analysis where things get difficult is if early on in retirement, the markets are down. Now, when we look back at history, you hear us talk about the various rules of investing, and how much income you can take from a portfolio. You often hear us refer to the 4% rule, right? Much, much, much more severe market conditions than what we're seeing now would have caused problems. But, that's something to consider.
Oh, absolutely.
You may be in a portfolio that wasn't as well diversified, and you're down more than you should be right now. And that would be a good reason to be very, very leery of taking too much income out early on.
Sure. You saw that a lot in 2008, the variability of people's portfolios,
Oh my goodness.
People who were well diversified and spread out. I mean, there was no place to hide naturally, but
your bonds actually held up, but a lot of people didn't own the right types of bonds.
Exactly. If you had the wrong types of bonds in there, but if everything was properly diversified, you're looking somewhere between 30 and 40%, decline, depending on what your
Even if you
ratio
did it
of stocks
right,
to bonds were.
Depending on how, if you had more bonds, it wasn't quite that bad. But
there were lots of people who lost 70, 80% of their portfolio, and I can't imagine, what that was like.
Oh, I had people listening to the radio show, and they would go, I heard you talking, and they would come in, and I would go, oh, yeah, you went down more.
Yeah,
than you really should have, and they had to go back to work. I mean, there was just no way around. So some of these people are going back to work for those reasons as well, because maybe they weren't as well mixed. But so what kind of, are they doing the same jobs that they were doing? Does it talk about that?
It really depends. They didn't talk a great deal about it, but I think, from my opinion, if you were in a field that you liked and you enjoyed and you want to go back to that field, there are probably opportunities to get back into that field.
You got specialized
maybe even
knowledge.
with the same company, the same job you had potentially.
Right. Right.
But for people who were like, I'm glad that's over with, I want to move on to the next chapter, there are lots of opportunities and openings out there. And, it's not that you have to go into, something menial or anything. What a lot of people did during this, and I saw a lot of this in different articles, was that, and this is not the retirees, but younger people who were working in restaurants and retail, as servers and clerks and things of that nature. When their hours were cut back or they were shut down, what they did was take a lot of online courses.
I was going to say they went back to school.
Yeah. And it's not like you went and spent 4 years at college getting a bachelor's degree. You just got a certification in something. And when things opened back up, there were lots of opportunities. And that's why you see so many openings in retail and restaurants and things now.
Especially,
because those people that were working those jobs, got an education or a certificate or something that allowed them to actually move up, in the workplace to different positions. And so, even ritirees can take advantage of that. A lot of these certificates you can get, in 6 months or a year. And doesn't mean that, because you left one career that you have to go back to that.
That's a really good point, because online education took a big leap forward.
Absolutely.
During that.
Yeah.
And now people can actually look at a lot of the universities locally. They've been seeing the writing on the wall that people don't come in person necessarily.
Right.
So, I know Trevecca, I talk about those guys a lot because that's where I've been going and getting my master's. They actually have a lot of online courses. Now, my particular area isn't online, but there are a lot of them that would be jobs that a lot of people would look at and go, hey, that would be fun. To learn about that. And it's good. It's, you sit in your pajamas and get a degree. I mean,
we've all seen those commercials on TV.
Oh, is that what they say in the commercials?
Well, no, they don't say that in the commercial, but a lot of times you'll see people, in
their
sweatshirts, sweatpants.
Okay. You know pajamas, me and TV, Chad. Come on.
Yeah, I know you and TV. You
don't bring that up.
What's a TV?
Yeah, exactly. Who has time for it? So there. Anything else that you found when you were doing that research on people going back that's interesting?
Didn't really find anything else in that article. It's just, things that I think, and you mentioned some of them, the social aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people were kind of forced into this early retirement. I think that's what a big portion of it is, if you were 60 years old and your business laid you off or your business shut down and you really didn't have any options, because, quite frankly, with everything shutting down, it wasn't like you could just go and find another job anywhere. Mm-hmm. But, maybe you hadn't planned on retiring till 65 or 67 or, whatever the age may be. You were just kind of left out in the dark. That was just, you had to, mm-hmm. and you had to figure out a way to make it work. And
right.
So you're like... But now that things have kind of turned the corner, businesses are operating at normal and everything now. I think a lot of these people who weren't ready to retire, are jumping back into the workforce. And then I think some of the people who thought they might be ready to retire, whether it's the social aspect or monetary, have decided, hey, maybe working a few more years is in my best interest.
Or sheer boredom on playing golf all day long and going, okay, I really loved this sport a lot when I played twice a week, but 7 days a week isn't, my thing.
Yeah, they've always said, there's the old saying, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And there's also the flip side of it is that, because people say, people like to fish or something. Say,
right.
Man, if I could make a living fishing, it would be great. But when you start making a living fishing, it's no longer a hobby; it's a job.
Oh yeah, I find that with music.
Yeah,
people that are musicians, and they go, oh man, another day in the studio, and I was like, I used to love this, and now it's like, ugh.
Right. And so sometimes it's best to keep a hobby a hobby.
Yeah. And serving humanity doesn't, my wife sent a meme, and it was something like being a decent, nice human being doesn't cost anything. And, the thing is you can be a decent, nice human being and actually make money. There's another side of that.
Very true.
Oh, which speaks to the whole idea that so often we spend money because, we think that it will get us what we want, which is better connection with humans.
Right.
And the reality of it is you can get better connections with humans without it costing anything, and maybe actually make money doing it.
Right. Yeah.
That, I think, is a definitely good point. All right, you are listening to the Investor Coaching Show.